The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
Thanks for joining us for episode number 471 of the West Tigers podcast. It is the midweek edition. It is the Wednesday after the day that was on Sunday, and Nick's back, and Nick's looking a little bit, he's got a bit of colour back in his cheeks, which is good, because on Sunday night I was very, very worried about him. And Josh is here. Josh hasn't had a chance to have his say about the events at Combank Stadium. And Mitch Wright is joining us. Mitch is a West Tigers fan who's been a long-time listener to the pod and joins us. Hello, Mitch. Good to meet you. And tell me, A, why are you why are you a West Tigers fan? And B, how did you come to be a West Tigers fan?
Yeah, g'day, guys. Thank you for having me on, actually. Yeah, I've been a long-time listener. I was saying before we came on, probably, I reckon, between 70 and 80th episode I came on.
Wow.
But, yeah, it's been pretty tough going ever since. But, yeah, to become a Tigers fan, like most of us, we've all got brainwashed by a parent or an uncle or something like that. But, yeah, my dad was a mad Balmain supporter down here in the country, so he never came. So then the merge, me in early 90s model, the merge wasn't that big a deal for me because I was only 9 at the time. So I just stuck thick, and then, like we always bash on, 2005, how good. But, yeah, here we are now, and hopefully we can bring some positivity and see how we go.
Hey, Mitch, it's great to have you on. I just want to welcome you to the West Tigers podcast counselling session. So your first session is today, so congratulations on joining us.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks,
and
mate.
all the best for the rest of your life decisions, and hopefully they're not as bad as the original one of supporting West Tigers.
It's definitely tough.
Counselling should come in the members pack, shouldn't it? Like you get a certain amount of you get a certain amount of sessions every year for West Tigers fans, especially if you're mad enough to be a member. Then you're obviously really committed, Nick.
Just touching on counselling, that poor little fella that was crying his eyes out at the Sharks game. Can you believe that Benji and the Tigers invited him to the game against the Panthers, and he ran out on the field with, I don't know if he was holding Jerome's hand, he was holding someone's hand, but that poor kid not only had to sit through that horrible game out at Shark Park, but he had to sit through 68-0 at Combank. That poor kid, if he makes it to adulthood, still supporting West Tigers, he's done very well.
It's funny because, we're going to talk about Leichhardt Oval, and my first memory of Leichhardt Oval, I went there as must have been maybe 10 or 11, and I got to see my heroes, and my heroes won, and I've still turned out cynical. I mean, what's going to happen to that poor bugger? His heroes are being beaten terribly. But anyway, Josh, I just want to skip the order that we were going to talk about things. The game against Penrith. You haven't had a chance to have your say. What?
Was there a game, Joel?
I know we've tried to erase it, but...
Yeah, the game against Penrith. I was there. I was sitting in the stands for and I always tell my kids we can't leave until the 80th minute. I was like, till it's all over. So we held each other to that. So I sat there for every single minute of it. Look, I think it's a combination of things. I think we were woeful. Just not the same energy and not the same. Some of that's injuries, and some of that's they just didn't turn up on the day. But I will also say, and especially live when you get to see it all happen, kind of, it's a beautiful ground to watch football at, and to see it from up high, they're an exceptional side. I then watched the Dogs Parramatta match on Monday, and Parramatta especially. I don't think they played worse than I don't think they played better than us last weekend. They were just playing a very different quality of side. They missed something like 60 tackles. I don't think their missed tackles and errors were actually worse than the Tigers were. So we were horrible, but Penrith are an exceptional side. And, I said to my kid, in 40 years you'll be able to tell your kids that that you saw this Penrith side play. So, and not just today, but over these last few years. So, so that was probably the only useful thing from our point of view. It was fairly woeful. I think, we didn't have the energy. We just made so many errors in our own half. Like we put ourselves under so much pressure, and then I think once they got on a roll on, there was just no coming back from that. So we just wipe it, and which I've very much tried to do, and move on to playing the Gold Coast this weekend, who are not the same quality of side. So see how that goes. Yeah,
Josh, just on making your kids sit through that 68-0 whitewashed until the very end, did you actually hold their eyeballs open so they were forced to watch the entire 80 minutes, or did you let them cover their face a little bit, or how did you father your children?
My wife took them down to get some food in the second half just to get 10 minutes off. But
10 minutes away from Josh.
10 minutes away, to be fair.
Yeah.
I was fairly disheartened by that point, to be honest. So I think she was just escaping. But I think my wife was probably watching something on her phone by about the start of the second half and had given up. But the kids sat through it. My little girl was reassuring and like, it'll be okay, Dad. They'll do better next time. And my son is really starting to get him the Tiger stuff. He was like blaming the ref and all kinds of things. So he's right into it. So yeah.
Mitch, what was your take on the game? Like, we seem to have this performance every year. Melbourne came out last year and smashed us off the park, especially in like that first 30 minutes last year, if you remember that game. We've spoken a lot about obviously injuries, and we see on the pod, as you would have heard listening recently, that depth is the biggest problem. Is that are you of the same accord? Are you thinking that that's an area we need to improve next year and beyond?
Yeah, definitely. I was chatting to a few mates along the way, and Penrith are really good, but they're not 68-0 good. Like you boys were saying a couple of weeks ago, it's the numbers from 22 to 30 that we really fall away. Like you look at even, we'll get to them like the Titans later on, the benches in both our sides, like the Tigers and the Titans, is, let's be honest, pretty average. No disrespect to the players, but yeah, I was listening on the radio and you could hear that there was quite a few Tigers in the crowd, but after 3 minutes, you get the repeats and you're like, here we go again. These guys are going to flex their muscle. It's like they grow a leg against us as well. And it's just one of those things. Like it's such a, like we're coming from such a low base for such a long time. It just feels like, the minute we sort of take that 2 or 3 steps forward, we're taking 1 or 2 back, or like the other day, you're taking 4 or 5 back, and it's really deflating as a fan base. And I'm sure it's deflating as the players. And like Benji, I don't know what he would have said going in after the game. So,
It's a game of momentum, Nick. And I think on the broader scale, on the broader side of things, teams need momentum through a season. And that's what I'm a little bit worried about. Not necessarily just this year, but it seems to be something that's a West Tigers thing, where we start off, we're gaining some momentum, and then something comes along and that momentum is snapped away. And some people would say it was the Luai thing. Some people would say it's the injuries. Some people would say it's the combination of things. But that's the frustrating thing, is that we just don't seem to be able to ever consistently build momentum as a club. We seem to be on the right track, and then something happens.
It happens every year, you're right. We keep having these mid-season lulls, and they're always around Origin time or just after.
Yeah.
We're doing it again now. I think the ups have been better this year, and we saw that through the first 6-7 rounds. But I think that's to do with the fact that our starting 17, when they're fully fit and ready to go like they were early in the season, we can compete with anybody, which we've said. But like Mitch just talked about and what Josh spoke about in the last couple of pods, is when you start tearing back the layers a little bit in regards to our depth, it starts to thin out quite quickly, and we don't seem to be covering those key positions very well. So I think until we can, I think this is actually a really good learning curve again for Benji Marshall in 2026, as we're kind of figuring out, yes, we can compete when we're fully fit and ready to go, but when you start losing a few key players, like who are you going to put in to take their spots? And I actually thought we had enough players to sort of patch holes, but it's quickly showing that we don't.
Yeah. And
I think we're that brittle and our backbone is that weak that as soon as we get exposed just a little bit, the confidence level is just shot. Like I don't think we've built up or sustained enough, success over our period of time in the NRL to be, a club that can, have long-term success. We just keep having these periods where we fall away.
I will say, I think I saw some numbers from the weekend, and Penrith had the most experienced NRL
Yeah.
side in the comp playing on the weekend, and we had the least experienced NRL side in the comp. So I think their average games was a little over double what we had across our 17. So when you look at that, you go, well, actually, we're just not in the we're not in the right. And the other teams with kind of that level of inexperience, kind of the bottom five were Gold Coast, Parramatta, Canberra,
Mm.
St George. Those are the teams that are down the bottom or the teams that are getting beaten. So experience counts. And I think if I look at our backup, that's probably one of the gaps is that we're bringing in kids, and that's not to say they aren't good kids, but when you're bringing in five of them and they have, and even if they're maybe not 20, but they're 23, but they have, even Mav Guy coming in with maybe 5 to 10 first grade games, whereas other sides are bringing in blokes with 40 first grade games out of New South Wales Cup to come on. And I think that experience counts when you're in matches where you're starting to lose. I think that experience probably counts actually more. You maybe it doesn't win you necessarily games with your backups, but it stops you getting hammered. But when you've got a bunch of kids out there that just haven't had the experience of tough NRL contests on a regular basis, that's when you struggle to hold the opposition back.
Mm. I said when Luai it was announced that he was going to PNG, that's not going to be an issue unless the wheels fall off from this point. It's hard to get a gauge on exactly how much impact that's had on the club because it happened just at the time when we lost a whole bunch of people to injuries. So it's hard to sort of get that data and know that. But Mitch, what do you think? Do you think that that losing someone who was here supposedly for the long haul and kept saying he was here for the long haul, do you think
Yeah.
that affected the playing group?
Oh, I think it has to, without being in the four walls, but like if you go into a workplace or I've played sport all my life, if you've got a guy in there that's pushing all the boundaries, setting standards for a club that's been struggling, and they've gone, oh, geez, this is good. This is a really good feeling. I really like this. And then all of a sudden you get the rug pulled out from underneath you. Surely it's got to knock, especially a lot of them kids, like the Islander kids. They would have been loving being around him. And even Taruva, he's only 23.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very impressionable guy, great player, but these young players would have been really relying on Luai. And unfortunately, I didn't want to believe it for the first few weeks. I was like, just stop beating us up. But yeah, no, it's starting to lean that way.
Yeah, yeah, and it is a pattern, as we were saying. It's a pattern in this club that we just have this thing happen every year, and all that good prep seems to go out the window. And what's even more worrying is that we just tend to not really be able to bounce back from it as well. Like some teams go through that lull and then they'll string together a whole bunch of wins. But I just don't know if that's going to be us this year. Israel Folau, changing topic. This was a bizarre one. This was one that just popped completely out of nowhere. We still don't know exactly what the truth is or the lay of the land. But on I think it was Tuesday, we were going, okay, this is potentially going to happen, and then I think by Tuesday afternoon it had been hosed down, which makes me wonder. I think there must have been some conversations, and maybe a sponsor or someone has put their hand up and said, no, we don't want that to happen, because it turned around really quick. But what do you think, Nick? Israel Folau, would it have been a mid-season circuit breaker? Would it have been, an injection of a new person, or would it have been something that would have given us bad publicity and ended up a West Tigers tragedy?
I don't see the negative in if we had been able to bring Israel Folau across, especially if it was going to be train and trial. If he was going to be playing reserve grade for the rest of the year, it certainly would have been a story a little bit different to the current story about West Tigers, about, Romy leaving and Tigers falling in a heap. So it might have been a little bit of an injection, like you say. I did get a little bit excited when I heard the story because I thought, far out, and now I realised, hang on, he's 37 years old and he hasn't played NRL for 16 seasons or something. And to be honest, I'd forgotten all about him. I don't watch rugby. I knew he'd been playing rugby, but I had no idea how he's been going, over in Japan. So, look, I wouldn't have said no, especially given the challenges we've had wings and centres, especially in regards to backups and even fullback. I think he probably might have been a better option than maybe a Heath Mason. Certainly got lots of experience in both codes, especially when I say especially NRL, it's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
And the game's changed a fair bit since he played as well. But look, I wouldn't have said no. It was an interesting one, way out of left field. But yeah, it looks like it's not going to happen.
Josh, is it a sign maybe that we're open to some mid-season recruitment or transferring or something to inject a bit of something into the team at this point?
I think we probably are, but I think this is probably a case that they approached us, and I think if you think Israel Folau's an Islander, we have Appy here, we have Benji as coach. I think and he also kind of was living in Sydney before, and so I think probably what led him to come to us would be my thoughts, but I think we are. To Nick's point, I kind of look at it two ways. I think off-field wise, that's a lot of noise and a lot of risk for a guy who might not be do that. And does that create too much noise around your team for no reason? But footballing wise, I mean, he's always an incredible talent. I get he's 37, but he's playing professional rugby. Like he is playing professional rugby in Japan. I did look it up, and he scored 8 tries in his last 6 matches in top level Japanese rugby, which is a reasonably high standard. Like there's lots of All Blacks playing over there. It's not So I think, and he's to our question about. I think we've had lots of problems on the wing. I mean, we've had Luke Lee, we've had Tino Tavana come in. They've all been destroyed. He's 195 centimetres, 103 kilos. He's played for Australia. He's played for Queensland. He's played for the Wallabies. Yes, he's 37, but you know what? Like, he's on the wing. He can still run. He's playing professional footy. He can still jump. So I think football-wise, like if I ignored everything else, football-wise, was he worth the training trial? Absolutely he was. The other stuff is probably the noise that it creates around your team is probably the reason the Tigers knocked it back, I would say. But yeah, look, I think that says that, maybe they saw that we needed something on that edge. And I think, this week's team probably looks better. But I hope we are still looking for some mid-season players. We have some spots available. Like, we should be trying to boost an injury-riddled squad. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think risk is the word, Mitch, isn't it? When I think about what could have been.
Yeah, I like the boys made some really good points there and sort of gave me a different look on it all. But I just see it as sort of a sugar hit Band-Aid solution. Like I look at the other clubs and how the other clubs seem to manage. Like the Dolphins seem to find these young players that just plug in. They do a job for 2 or 3 weeks and they go back to the Queensland Cup, or even like. Well, Penrith, it's just, we don't even need to talk about them because it's just ridiculous. But you know what I mean? If it was 2010, sign him up, but it's a little bit late.
It's only 16 years too late.
Yeah.
I like that thinking about it like a production line, but Nick, like that's, and we spoke about the juniors a little bit last week with Jordan, and he was saying some good stuff's happening in the MacArthur and that, but we got to get to that point where we are like that Penrith production line where you lose the centre, but there's a pretty darn good centre waiting in reserve grade coming in, ready to come in. That's the difference, isn't it? Because we all have good 13, starting 13 teams, but it's what happens 4 months into the season when people start getting injured and suspended. That's where it's like the horse racing analogy. You come around the bend and that's where the cream rises to the top, is having those guys ready to go.
It is, but when you think about, if you compare us to Penrith Panthers, we're probably, 5, 6, 7 years behind in terms of development and junior development behind the Panthers. They've come a hell of a long way over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah. Well, they were us 10 years ago, pretty much.
They were, and we're still in struggle street trying to get out of it. And like Josh said, our squad was the youngest or most inexperienced in the NRL last week. So it seems to be the case. We just have so many young players every year, and it doesn't matter what position, but we just seem to blood a lot of young guys, which is good. But you got to find a bit of a balance, I suppose, especially when you're looking at an average age or average experience across the NRL team too. But that's probably got a bit to do why we fall away in games too. You've got these young kids trying to play NRL week in, week out. You're midway through the season and they're probably fatiguing a bit, not just physically, but mentally as well. So I guess that's where a player like Israel Folau, I'm not saying him specifically, would help. Someone older and experienced that's done it for years and years and years, would probably be able to fit into the team and take a bit of pressure off some of these young guys. And he could afford to put people like Makasini back into reserve grade for a couple of weeks if he needs it. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. We've still got 20 days before the end of June, so let's see what happens over the next few weeks.
I was thinking about mid-season transfers into the West Tigers. Lottie Dakiri comes to mind. Taylor May last year. Anybody think of any others?
Wade McKinnon, back when the
Yeah,
Tigers
Wade
were doing
McKinnon.
well. Wade
Wow.
McKinnon came in and played well in 2011 or 10 or one of those final
Yeah.
seasons. He was there.
Jeez,
So
Josh.
there you go. Pulled
What's
that out of
lurking in the
Joel.
back of
Yeah,
Josh's mind?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wade McKinnon. Okay. I'm sure there's probably someone else, but yeah, sometimes it can work, if you can find the right guy that comes in and, I don't know if that was Israel Folau, but we're probably not going to know now. The Titans at Leichhardt. Let's have a little bit of a look at that game because it's important for a couple of reasons. One, it's sort of pretty much our grand final, I think. Does Josh agree? Is this the West Tigers grand final?
Joel, I've been saying for many weeks when Nick's been saying this is a really important game, and I kind of thought those 5 or 6 games there against some top-ranked teams or some formerly top-ranked teams when we had a bunch of players out and they were on a good run, that it wasn't, season-defining. I actually think it's this game against a lower side at our home ground. If we lose this, season over. Like that is, I actually think this is the most important game we played all year, because it's the last game at Leichhardt, because we've had a few big losses, and because I think if we can come out and show that even with a few injuries, like we're still missing, 5 players that walk into our starting lineup, although I think it's a little better this week. I think if we can come out and win this, though, this says, okay, we can beat the Dragons when we play them twice. We can beat the other kind of struggling teams. So to me, if we lose this and say not only are we getting beaten by Penrith, we're actually getting beaten by the Gold Coast, then I think that's, especially at our spiritual home, that's a shocker. So to me, this is the most important game of the season, and for the rest of to set up the rest of our season one way or another after this weekend. I'll either be we aren't going to make the finals, or we're right in this still and we'll be fine. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily mathematical, because we can obviously still make it from a mathematical perspective. It's the confidence and what it would do to the club if we had one of those performances that we've all seen before against the Gold Coast. I've got my stat there. So 6 from 12. So 50% is required. Now, that's only to get to 30 points, and I heard a few people talking about you're probably going to need 32 points. So maybe that's 7 from 12, which means we can afford 5 losses through the rest of the season. Gold Coast game at Leichhardt, Mitch, as Josh was saying, like, it's make or break, surely. This is, we lose this.
I just scribbled down, have to win this game. I just had a quick look at the ladder. Like, you look at the teams below us, there's probably only really the Storm that are really hunting at us, but above us is 9 other teams, and you look at those guys, like the Rabbits are probably the only ones in a bit of a form slump, but they've got some guns that are going to come back eventually. We can't be affording to drop this game, not at Leichhardt. And like you boys said on Tuesday, like we tend to stumble on these big games at Leichhardt. So fingers crossed. It just worries me. The Titans just have strike. They won't do anything, but then they hit their straps last week against the Broncos, and then look at the next week. There's the Tigers sitting there ready to be taken. So, yeah, no, I think it's definitely a must win.
The Titans, Nick, are a team that have traditionally given us trouble. I think it's not necessarily the way that they play or the way that we play. I just think that they look at us and kind of go, well, they're about our level. This is a possible win, and they come with their best possible game, and they seem to save that for us. They seem to be really find another level. Guys like AJ Brimson and that I think it's going to be one that the Titans fans are probably thinking to themselves, this is a possible win.
I think most teams that would come up against the Tigers think this is a good week that we get a win. But I watched that Titans game against the Broncos last week, and I thought they were really good. Jaden Campbell's playing really good football, and he looks very, very dangerous every time he touches the ball. He's got a really good kicking game. He's quick. He's just a real footballer. Like, he's a real halfback or number 6, wherever he's playing. But they got some really good players. Keanu Kenny at fullback as well. I think he's quite dangerous. But yeah, I was impressed with the way they played. I thought they completed their sets really well. They looked very good, playing against the Broncos team that isn't, at the top of their game at the moment, but they certainly put it on last week and beat the defending premiers. So it's going to be tough. Like, You know what? Benji's actually put quite a bit of faith in our team because our team isn't that different. Like, yes, we're missing Uppy, who's picked for the Blues, and that's been a bit of a contentious one as well amongst fans. Like, I personally am very happy that he's been picked for the Blues because, as Josh knows, I did play golf with Uppy Coruscant, and he did say that he'd love to play for the Blues again, so I'm very happy there. Won't mention that again, Josh.
Has he sent you tickets, Nick? He's like, you've inspired me into it. So, yeah.
You won't mention again on this pod or ever?
Yeah. Just today. Yeah.
Just today. But I'm really happy for him. But you know what? At some point, we have to stand up without him. And look, Uppy played last week. He was back after his 3-game suspension. Everyone thought the team was going to lift, including myself. And we got absolutely pumped with him in the team. So that just goes to show that it's not all about us needing Uppy in the team for us to be competitive. We need the whole squad to be competitive. Uppy's not there. Latu, he's in the 9 jersey again. I don't know if I would have picked him there, but he's getting another crack. And the majority of our players this week get another crack to stand up and say, we're not a 0-68 team. And this is our last game at Leichhardt. It's going to be sold out. I think I've already seen the email that there's no more tickets allocated. It's completely exhausted. So we have to stand up. And like Mitch was just saying, right? And like I've been banging on for the last 5-6 weeks looking at the draw over this period of time, we were sitting quite good when we were 5-2. We've lost 3 straight, which were horrible. We stood up really well against the Dogs and then got absolutely annihilated last week. We're now walking the tightrope. And like Josh is saying, if we lose to the Titans at home, we're not mathematically out of it, but we are in big trouble emotionally and psychologically because, like we've just said before, this has happened so many times in recent seasons where we have this lull and we cannot get ourselves out of it. So it is as imperative as it was 2 weeks ago to beat the Dogs for us to beat the Titans this week.
We've found some centres, Josh, even though I don't know how fit they are because, if we go back 3 or 4 weeks, we're probably thinking these guys might not play first grade again this year or play football again this year. But the back line looks a lot better, not knowing exactly what their medical status is at the moment. Taylor's a bit of a surprise that he's there. And Toa has earned that spot again. Let's hope both his arms are working.
Yeah, look, I mean, if they're going out there and they've been named, I'm going to assume they're fit and they're going to get through the 80 minutes. Like that's you have to go with that. I can't see the club bringing them back deliberately injured. So, I mean, maybe Toa's looked that way all season, so maybe that's a interesting one. But I thought he was good when he came on a couple of weeks ago. He made that great defensive tackle against the Dogs when he wasn't out there last week. Kalen May coming back is really exciting. But also what it does is it puts Taruva and Makasini back on the wings, where I think, like, to me, that's almost where it really adds the strength is you take those. Both of those were playing in the centres last week. They're both better wingers, especially at this stage of his career for Hamasi. It's a much better looking backline. Like, if I look at that compared to what last week, I feel a lot more confident in defence. Just having Taylor May out there, I feel more confident. I mean, I don't think he's going to shoot the lights out after a few weeks off the shoulder, but I feel more confident having both of them out there. And, I feel that backline with the wingers there, like, then it's not going to be the kid mistakes that we've had from Ali and Tavana and things out on that edges. I think Makasini is a better option and a bigger option than him, and Taruva is just an outstanding player. Like, Casey McLean was probably dominated him, but that's what happens when you have a winger in the centres and you've got I think McLean has been the form centre of the season. So the back line looks much better, and we've even got Paddy Herbert off the bench. Like, I think we have 3 better centres than we had available last week, so that's probably a good sign for the team and probably helps in defence as much as anything. So
yeah, well, we've also had Makasini put a line through him for the season a couple of times too, and he keeps bouncing back, which is incredible. But Mitch, that aside from you'd put Dewey in at halfback, that's a full strength backline. That's the backline that most of us sort of had penciled in for the season. I mean, that's got to buoy our enthusiasm and our hopes, you would think.
Yeah, totally agree. What I give for Dewey to be back out there this weekend, just for his just run. Like, I've got written down. Just run. Run first, pass later. But like Josh said, the back line looks a lot better with the centres. I just worry, like, is Taylor May's shoulder just going to pop in the first 5 minutes and it'd be another Tigers afternoon where we go, oh crap, what are we going to do with Herbert out there? And then have we heard anything on Madden? Is he 100% fit, or is he going to last 20 minutes and then all of a sudden we're shifting a 9 to a 7 and Hope's going to have to play 60 minutes, which with all due respect, we don't really need that. But yeah, no, I'm a lot more confident with that back line, that's for sure.
When you're just talking about Jock Madden there, Mitch, like I'm sure in the last few weeks we've seen him twinge a hammy. I've seen him hold his shoulder, and we saw him hyperextend his elbow last week.
Yeah.
And you talk about Taylor, a few weeks ago we saw him pop his shoulder in the most insignificant attempt at making a tackle. Like it was so minor. Buller's carrying, I'm sure he's got a lot of strapping on that shoulder. He's carrying a shoulder injury. The list goes on, but Stafford, he's been busted for a couple of years, but it does worry me that these guys, I wonder if they're actually being not made to play, but whether we just don't have much of a choice. And it might just be a fact where Benji's just saying, look, we're just going to get you through the season because we need you. And then you're all probably going to be lined up in the hospital bed come September or October, hopefully. But they're a bit busted, but it does worry me that someone's going to get hurt again because they're extremely fragile at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing, sorry, Josh, the other thing too, like it's the engine room that the Tigers they've got to aim up. Like it's all well and good to have a nice back line, but if the boys aren't, like, what was it, 900 metres last week?
Yeah, not even 900.
You're getting, like, if you want them blokes to get some space on the edges, you need to be flooding the middle, getting over the ad line. And, like, looking at the Titans forward pack, like, yeah, there's some decent players there, but you sort of back yourselves in to sort of get over the top of them or at least hold them to be able to go down our edges. But, yeah, we haven't seen it the last couple of weeks.
No, agree. And, we did hear some rumours earlier in the week that Lanyon, who was named as 21, was going to play. And I assume if that ends up happening by any chance that it's that it's either Hope drops off the bench, which I'd prefer if that was the option, or that it's Madden is out and Latu moves to halfback and Hope plays. But if he does play, hopefully it's instead of Hope on the bench. I think our starting 13 is better than theirs and enough to win. Injuries, as we said. The bench, though, like that bench is not like Tristan Hope, Alex Seyfarth, Bunty Afoa, Mav Guy and Charlie Murray, who were both very disappointing last week. Herbert, well, that's a bit of a different thing. He's fill any one of the backs goes down, but there's no real punch off that bench. That is, but then I just looked across the Gold Coast bench. There's not much there either. I mean, they are Queensland Cup specials. I mean, imagine Tristan Hope played with or against all of those blokes for most of his career on the Gold Coast bench because it's not looking fancy either. But I think it'll be. I think if we can get the full minutes they're normally playing out of our top 13, I think we'll be fine. It's how many minutes we have to put into our benchies that'll be the concern for me.
You know where the punch has to come from this week, Josh? It's got to come from the 17-odd thousand people that turn up to Leichhardt. Because this is an occasion. We're playing against an out-of-Sydney team that will have very, very few fans there. We have the opportunity to make as much noise as physically possible to get in the referee's ear. And no, he's not going to give Tigers a 10-0 penalty count and no 6 against at the Titans. Like that won't happen. But we've got a very, very good chance to lift our boys, and they all talk about how they love playing at Leichhardt and how loud it is and how good the atmosphere is, and that's what we're going there to. That's what I'm going there to do. So I'm going to be planning on losing my voice, Joel, Sunday night. So I may not be talking, but big opportunity.
Sione at lock. What do we think? Closer to 12 than Charlie Murray. I thought, Charlie didn't provide us, as I'd suspected in that game against Penrith, didn't provide us with a whole lot of meters. Sione probably strengthens us a little bit there. Mitch, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was going to talk about Latu Fainu. I'd just love to see him. I know he's probably playing out of position at 9, but he's not a little bloke and he's not slow. I'd just love to see him in the first 20 minutes just run the ball, take a little bit of heat off our halves as well, because at the moment it's basically just play the ball unless Appy's playing and we just dish it off. I think Latu's good enough to sort of set a tone for us to go with him. And then all of a sudden, you get them A and B defenders thinking, is he going to go? Is he going to pass? So, yeah, and then, like I said, Sione, I think, bigger body, he'll shore us up in defence, that's for sure. Obviously, Twalio had him on the rubbish dump, like all of us, I think, 12 months ago. But, yeah, no, he's just jumped out of the ground. Love to have him back out there. But, yeah, I just jotted down a couple of things there about Latu. You hear about, he's the gun. I'd love him just to go, right, I am good enough. I'm going to take the game on, come with me. Because he's done it a couple of times at lock when he's come on. He just runs direct. He squares up the attack, and we look a lot better. So I'd love to see it. It might get you going, Nick, in the crowd if he does. That'd be really good.
I think you're spot on, Mitch. And I think watching Latu play 9, he's a little bit one-dimensional. And I'm not sure whether he's been told just to shuffle it out from dummy half because that's your job. But that's all he does. And like you're saying, it's very, very predictable. But you're right. He's nuggety enough and he's strong enough and he's quick enough to make a few runs because I don't think opposing teams have probably watched much of that on video. So,
yeah. Oh, and the other thing is too, like it works well with Dewey because he's such a big body. If you dish it out to him and they rush up, he can just take them on and gain you the 10 metres. Yeah. When you got Madden, he's not a back foot player. Like he's a very, very steady, handy player. When you got the go forward, he'll kick the corners. He won't make an error. But off the back foot, I just don't. He's not the player that's going to throw a dummy and make a line break. He's going to try and dish off, and it's just like shell and peas in defence. Like that's like the better teams just pick us off for fun. So yeah, I'd really like to see it. Just a different angle.
Yep, agreed. There's been. Sorry, just I'll come to you in a sec. I was just going to say, there's been plenty of times when I've been to Leichhardt Oval or Campbelltown or wherever, and I've watched an opposing team, and the opposing team comes with a really high-priced half, and you think to yourself, if we had that guy, we would have won the game. Like he was the difference between. And isn't it funny how our expectations of Luai are so low that we haven't even spoken about him in terms of controlling the game or being the difference? Because I look at these two lineups and I see a whole lot of decent first grade players, but I see one guy there that's on really big money and has won premierships and state of origin and played for his country, and he doesn't even get a mention in terms of being a key component or in our chances on Sunday. Josh, sorry about that.
Actually, that was what I was going to get to. I think he needs to step up. Like, I think the injuries and the timing around the PNG thing has been unfortunate for him, and we kind of talked about that earlier. But ignoring the PNG thing and ignoring the fact we've got other injuries, he is our captain, especially this week without Appy. We're a better side on paper. Like that backline is almost full strength. We've got Terrell May and Folau and Kai Pearce-Paul and Sione in the forwards. I think we can more than match them in the forwards. I think Jerome really does have to step up and lead the team. He's at Leichhardt. He's our captain. He's really got to go out there and bring that energy to the thing. Like I want to see those forwards being screamed at. Like I don't even if it's not the creating the tries every moment. He needs to kick more, especially with Madden playing a bit injured, and he needs to be screaming at those forwards. He needs to do that part of the halfbacks or the halves job and really be the guy who's driving the team around the field. When you say bringing the energy, I don't want to see Jerome dancing and skipping around and, like he does doing the Benji steps, because he does that a lot. He kind of stifles himself and he stifles everybody around him. Like they don't really know what he's going to do. And Benji was a bit like that when he wasn't at his best too. He'd kind of default to doing his hop, skip and jump, and then everyone would kind of freeze and, what's Benji going to do? And then the defense just rushes up and, he's got nowhere to go. But Jerome was like that last week. And like you're talking about, he needs to control the team. Josh, you're spot on. One example I can think about last week, it was might have been in the second half. One of the Penrith tries was when we got kind of stuck about 10, 20 metres out from our own line. We started going sideways. They threw it to Jerome. Jerome threw a pass that he should never have thrown straight into a Penrith player's hands, and they scored. Like that's just a brain fart. And for a leader of your club, you can't afford to be doing that sort of stuff. Like put the dancing away, put the tricks away, direct the guys straight into where the holes are, or run at tight defenders, or just get everything going direct and straight. And then everything else will fall off the back of that.
One thing I would say though is Penrith's line speed was
Incredible.
pretty amazing last
Yep.
week, which made us play flatter, and it brought out all of our weaknesses.
Yep.
We need something from Luai, and Luai needs something, Mitch, doesn't he? He's got to bounce back. I mean, that was a really, really forgettable afternoon for him, as it was for all of us, of course. But when you're playing against your old team like that, that he would have been embarrassed, I think. So I reckon he's going to be in for a big one.
Yeah, he's definitely he's a proud man. You wouldn't want that against your old team, against any team. But the other thing is too, Moses is half injured at Origin, and then Strange is one injury away. He should be knocking the door down to play for New South Wales still. And I'm actually hoping he brings a bit of rubbish. He plays his best when he's hitting hard in defence and standing over people, not like Nick said, dancing around.
Yeah,
I'd love for him, because he started doing it against Melbourne and then the wheels fell off. He's just get it and run, get into the game instead of just dish off. And then, like you say, he's got the best left foot step, but he uses it 4 times and ends up on the right-hand side. It just puts everyone out. So, I'm praying that he turns up and rips in, because like we said earlier, all the younger guys get on his back. We've seen it when we score tries and he's carrying on, they're all over him. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Big time, 100%. Lanyon, Josh, there is some rumours that he'll make his debut. He's sort of come somewhat out of the blue. I mean, I've heard his name a few times, but what should we expect if he gets a run?
Yeah, I watched him quite a bit in Jersey Flegg last year, where he was Player of the Year for the Jersey Flegg side last year, and he's played a fair bit of cup, kind of moving between kind of bench and bench hooker quite a bit. He's good off the bench. He's a hooker / lock. I actually think he does his best work kind of off that bench lock position, but he's also his passing's good. He's good out of dummy half. Is he quite up to first grade at this stage? I'm not sure, but I don't think he'd be overawed. As I said, he was in the Jersey Flegg last year. He showed a lot of talent and a lot of he was strong through the middle. He's not kind of a weak little guy. He's shortish, but it's not he is strong enough. So look, I think he'd do a good job off the bench, and I think he'd come on and pass the ball and do his job. I don't think we'll expect miracles, but I'd like to see him get a crack. If it was me and the others are fit, I would. I think it'd be good to give him a crack, because we know that Tristan Hope isn't up to it. So we may as well give a Tigers kid who's come through the juniors. And he's been playing, when he comes on in Cup, you do feel a noticeable energy that he brings, I guess. So, looking forward to it, hopefully.
Yeah, we could use some energy. And Javon Andrews is there on the bench as well. I mean, I think we've got to start thinking, maybe see what happens this week. But I think Javon's got to be getting pretty close to getting some sort of run in first grade, I would think. He's a pretty big body, and I don't think he'd be out of place 20 minutes off the bench at some stage in a game. Maybe that's something to think about. I mean, I was reading an article just talking about Latu Fainu, about he is the future halfback. And I think Benji said that in the press conference. So, if he's the future halfback and Javon is the future 5'8", that's what we've got to work out, is how do we best transition to that over the next 18 months. But
what's Adam Dewey?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think Adam's the current and future halfback. He's the form half of the comp before he got injured.
Who would have thought we'd be saying that?
Yeah. I know, it's weird. It even sounded weird when I was saying it out loud.
And think about it too. AD was in Origin conversation.
He would have played.
100%.
He would have played in Origin 1. You look, especially once there was the injury, he would have been in that strange position. People would have been talking about how Adam Dewey blitzed game 1, and his first game, and he would have, I reckon, sat home and been quite sad watching, excited for New South Wales, but sad watching that, because that was his position, especially once Moses went down. He would have been in that side. So, it was. I was kind of sad. I would have loved to see him out there. So,
missed opportunity. The Tigers are favourites. Should the Tigers be favourites, Mitch? Do you think that's fair? Do you think the punters have got that right?
Well, I think we might be paying for the Leichhardt tax.
Yeah.
But again, I keep looking at the team, and I really worry about. I've got Brimson, Keeney, and Campbell, and I look at who would, I know fullbacks don't mark each other, but we've got Buller, Toa, who should be, if his arm's sewn on this week, can defend Brimson. And you got Luai, who's a weapon in defence too. So you cancel them out. You're like, God, big crowd. It's the last game. I think the punters would have, the Tab or Sportsbet or whoever we're sponsored by, they would have been very game to make the Titans favourite this week. I'm fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. I'm not confident. I'm hopeful. Looking at the teams, and I believe we should be favourites.
You're more hopeful than you were half an hour ago.
Yeah. Because I've scrunched those pieces of paper up now. I'm looking at the positive stuff.
Some of the stats, we've played 29 games. They've won 18. We've won 11. So it's not a good record against the team that's, mostly on our level. This year, points scored, we've scored 275. They've scored 220. But we've conceded more than them, so our defence not as good. Obviously, a couple of blowouts didn't help there, with maybe the Titans been a little bit more consistent than us, 353 to 303. And we beat them by that field goal last year, but they beat us as well. I think that game was up there where they beat us. I've completely eradicated that game from my memory of playing the Gold Coast up there last year, and maybe that's probably a good thing, because most of the games that the Tigers play on the Gold Coast for 35 years, I've wanted to eradicate from my memory, because most of the time they're not happy occasions. And both teams in the last 5 games, both 4 losses and 1 win. So some interesting stats. But Leichhardt Oval, Nick, it'll be the last one before the redevelopment. We're going to talk a little bit about Leichhardt and some memories, but it's going to be a little bit of a blow for the club over the next couple of years when the redevelopment is on, because it's the only home ground we've got where we have a winning percentage. So that sucks a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But again, we need to learn to win at other venues. So it's as simple as that. We need to learn to win more at Campbelltown. I know that's been a bit of a challenge for us in recent history, but it is what it is. But Leichhardt needs to be redeveloped. It's archaic and the facilities are horrible, so it needs to be brought into the future. And it's funny because when you look at even our intro on YouTube, which is AI generated, but based off the plans for what Leichhardt is going to look like, it's not that dissimilar. So it is getting a facelift, but it's going to keep a lot of its heritage value and what we've all grown to love over the many, many years that the Tigers have been playing out of there. So, yeah, look, wherever we play over the next couple of years, I assume it's going to be CommBank and Campbelltown. We just got to rally behind the team and hope that they can continue to go on to bigger and better things over the next year and a half.
Do we still play at Campbelltown, Josh? It feels like months and months since we've been out there.
It does feel like a while. I think we're out there next week, though, in this run of 4 home games. So maybe we've got 2 games. We might even have 2 games out there in the next couple of weeks. So, but it has been a while, so I think we finished off strongly. It'll be – I'm glad the renovations are happening. That will make next season harder. Where this is we can generally be guaranteed a win or 2 even when we have a bad season at Leichhardt. That will make it harder, but if we're never playing a full season of games there, even after redevelopment. So we have to win at Campbelltown and we have to win at CommBank, which is it's a good ground, and we have to win everywhere. But home games are, even the best teams win more games at home. So, but we've got to make them all our home grounds. But I will be there on Sunday. I'm very excited for it. I have some great memories, some not so good memories, a mixture of those over the years at the Old Girl. So looking forward to it.
Well, we'll get a couple of those in a second. Mitch, what are you're not based in Sydney, you're out of Sydney in the Highlands, Southern Highlands, but Leichhardt, what does it hold for you being a former Balmain fan and a long-time West Tiger?
Like the old man, I've been there once. I went there probably when I was 5, I reckon I went there, and there's a little bit of chat getting around. We might pop up on the weekend. Right. A couple of mates are keen. But, Campbelltown's sort of my home ground. It's about an hour and 10 minutes up the highway. Yeah. It's going to be a shame to not be there. But, the biggest issue we've got is that we've got CommBank, and it's a great stadium, but Penrith and Parramatta have got the home ground there too. So technically it's not a home ground at all. I think we've just got to be better at Campbelltown. Like, I've been there so many times, and there'd be 85% of Tigers supporters against, like even against the Broncos this year. There was probably 6 Broncos supporters there.
Yeah.
And we somehow managed to trip over our own feet and let them beat us. But I'm actually looking forward to see, because like Leichhardt's not only just the Tigers' home ground, like how many, it's in action 265, 300 days of the year.
Yeah.
So it's much needed. I'd much rather an upgrade than this talk. Like there was talks over the years, or maybe we just close it down and that's the end of it. So it's definitely close to my heart. With, like you said, with the Balmain connection through the old man. So hopefully get up there on Sunday.
It's funny because some of the memories for me are the games which are sort of the big event games. So like Wayne Pearce's last game, Balmain's last game there in '94, we were never coming back, and here we are, over 30 years later, and still playing there. Some of those games around '05, when like I think there was a game against Manly, I think it was a Friday night game where we comprehensively beat them, something 18-4,
49-24.
like that. Yeah. There's just so many memories that they all tend to sort of. The worst memory of Leichhardt was a Balmain memory, and it was a tackle that broke Jody Rudd's leg. And I don't know if any of you guys were there for that, but you could hear the crack, and that was not a pleasant memory of Leichhardt. But lots of memories of the old girl. What about for you, Nick?
I do have that Manly victory where we beat Manly 49-24. So
was that the score? Was it? Yep.
Yeah, a little bit of a sad story. I don't want to make it too somber, but that year 2005 was obviously a huge one for us as a club. Me personally, I actually lost one of my best mates 3 weeks before that game. So
right.
I'm just looking at the results. It was on June the 5th. It was a Sunday afternoon. We played Melbourne at Leichhardt and we lost 30-14. But I took my mate to the footy, who was recovering from surgery. We had a great time, but the following morning he passed away, sadly and tragically. That next month was an absolute whirlwind emotionally for me. Starting to get a little bit funny talking about it now.
Of course.
But 3 weeks later, we beat that Manly at Leichhardt on that Friday night, and I was there. And I just won't forget that game because we ran absolute rings around the Seagulls that night. And then we obviously went on to really good things not long after that. And the rest of that season and that year just felt magical. And I don't know if that had anything to do with my mate passing away, but a lot of weird stuff happened at the back end of 2005 and finished off with the premiership. But I'll never forget that year, especially the back half.
Yeah, good memories. Yeah, bad memories, but good memories. Josh.
Look, Leichhardt to me, like obviously I've been to lots of games over many years, but I think it's more there's something about Leichhardt where it's that personal connection of the people you're with and those kind of moments. And I remember the first time I went, I was 13. I was down from the country, staying with a mate in Sydney who I went to school with, and we came over from his house in Woollahra. Now, being a country boy at the time, I figured it's Sydney, everything's close to everything else, but it actually seemed to take us quite a while. And I remember walking in, like I'd been a Balmain fan. I mean, walking in, and here was this magical little ground that we'd kind of walk through the streets to, and just the Tigers beat South that day, and it was and they were the Balmain Tigers back then, and that was kind of my first introduction to Leichhardt. And if I wasn't already hooked on the Tigers, I was ever since that moment. And then in more recent times at West Tigers, a couple of with Nick's sad story, and it is a very sad story, Nick, and I but I'm going to follow this up with some kind of funnier moments over the years. Me and my mate Lars, who I've mentioned before, the Danish Tiger, we were on the hill at Leichhardt a few years ago. Many beers in, from the Royal beforehand, and there just before halftime, and it was a cold and wet day, and there were, it was been wet, and there wasn't many people there. It was the end of the season. We one of those seasons, 2014 or something, where we'd been flogged a lot. And some guys come up and went, "We're looking for some people to join the halftime entertainment. We've had some people pull out." They're like, "We're doing Zorb balls." And so we've drunkenly, stuck our hands up. And because we're like, we get to go on Leichhardt Oval. This is the most exciting thing ever. And so we're having these Zorb ball race. We got on these Zorb ball race, and we both made it through the first round. We're in separate first rounds of these, running these Zorb balls up and back. And we both made the final. And there was actually some kind of good, quality prize, like event.
A proton car, maybe.
I can't remember what it was, but obviously we were quite, and we were both in this, and we're on either side at the start of this race, and we've just gone who cares about the race? We're knocking each other over, and we spent just charged towards each other in these Zorb balls. So that was a real highlight. And the other one for me, one of our other mates who regularly comes with us, his name's Marty, but he often dressed up when Lottie was playing for us, he dressed up in a Lottie wig and Tigers gear, and he's a pasty white Englishman, always wearing weird stuff. But he had this big Lottie costume, and we're walking behind the grandstand, and Lottie walks the other way. And he's in this Lottie costume.
Yeah.
And Lottie's just started cracking up laughing at this. We had a chat to him for about 20 minutes, but he was very entertained about my pasty white English mate, with his big Lottie Kiri wig. So those were my favourite memories of the old girl. So yeah.
Right.
I've got another one. 2000, the trial against the Northern Eagles, where we just won, I think, 50-0 or something like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, geez, this is pretty good. This life is going to be fantastic. How amazing is this going to be? We've merged, all our problems are over. This is going to be smooth sailing for the rest of time. And if only I knew what was ahead of us, the highs and very, very lots of lows.
Joel had hair back then, that was
I did have
just on your Lottie story, Josh. I was just thinking Joel would look amazing with a Lottie wig.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, well, I've been saying to my wife I want to get one of those caps that have got the fake hair on top. Anyway, let's leave it there, boys. Thank you, Mitch. Lovely talking to you, and thanks for your time.
No, thank you, boys, and up the Tigers for the weekend, eh?
Yeah,
up the Tigers. Good on you, Mitch.
We'll
good to meet you, mate.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah,
thanks,
we'll
Mitch.
See you again. Thanks, Nick and Josh. And we'll reconvene after the events of Sunday afternoon. Let's keep those fingers crossed. Yes. He says very tentatively.
Hopefully,
boys.
Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.